Did you know that childhood trauma can rewire your brain and nervous system to be hyper alert and make them more prone to getting stuck in a chronic stress response, resulting in chronic symptoms? You might be wondering, if something happened decades ago, how can it still be affecting my nervous system today? That's a great question, and one I get asked all the time. In this video, I'm going to share a real conversation with a client, one that shows exactly how past trauma can keep your nervous system stuck in danger mode, leading to symptoms, and more importantly, how to begin to get unstuck. Before we jump into the conversation, let me introduce you to Jane. Jane is in her 30s and she had fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and chronic Lyme disease. When we first started working together, she made great progress. Her symptoms improved and her pain disappeared completely. But then we hit a snag. At that point, Jane was working on reintegrating back into life, bringing in more activity, more social contact, more stimulation. And she was able to do everything we planned. She could go out, run errands, meet people, but every time she came back home, she would crash. The crashes seemed different from the fatigue crashes we had already worked through. And interestingly, the crashes did not happen if she was out of town doing the same exact things. After talking it through, we both realized somehow Jane's brain had associated coming back home with danger. Here's how the rest of that session unfolded. When I asked Jane what made coming home feel unsafe, she was initially unsure. She told me, I actually look forward to unwinding when I'm home. So we decided to try some parts work. I gently invited her to close her eyes and focus on the part of her that crashes when she gets home. I asked her to notice what came up: words, images, feelings, or bodily sensations. Jane said she felt tightness in her chest. I encouraged her to stay with that sensation, just watching it with openness and curiosity, without trying to change it or make it go away. As she continued to focus, the tightness in her chest grew. It feels like I can't breathe. I acknowledged her struggle and the struggle of her part, and invited her to let the part know, I see how much you are hurting. I don't know why yet, but I am here with openness in my heart. Then I asked her to place a hand gently on her chest, like she would comfort a loved one who was hurting. That's when something shifted. She said, Oh wow, I know what this part is struggling with. Jane shared that as a child, she never felt safe at home. She felt trapped with an angry, unpredictable parent, stuck with no way to escape. And now, being stuck at home because of her symptoms felt very similar. The symptoms are also angry and unpredictable. It still feels like I cannot escape. I told her that made perfect sense. I invited her to thank the part for trusting her with that truth and to let it know, I see your struggle, but this time you don't have to go through this alone. I'm here with you. Jane noticed that her chest felt more relaxed. A sense of calm was beginning to settle in. I asked how she felt towards that part now. She responded with compassion. It shouldn't have had to go through that alone. No child should have to live like that. I encouraged her to let the part know that what happened was wrong and unfair, and it never should have happened. And then I asked, this part sees being at home today as the same situation as your childhood. But what do you think? Jane took a breath and said, I can see how it would feel that way. I have been stuck at home for long periods. But the reasons are completely different now. Back then, I had no way out, but now I do. I can sit in my backyard, I can leave if I want. I live with someone who cares about me. This isn't the same. It's apples and oranges. I affirmed what Jane said. You're right, it is completely different. But it also makes sense why your brain might still perceive home as dangerous. I explained to Jane that when the brain associates home with danger, it triggers a stress response, and that's what leads to the crash and symptoms. Jane nodded and said, Yeah, I see that now. So we moved to safety reappraisal. I asked her how she could help her brain reevaluate the situation. She said, Coming home is not dangerous. I like to relax and unwind here, and it's a choice I'm making. I love coming home to my husband. He cares about me. This is my home. I have a voice here. I'm not at the mercy of someone unpredictable. My home is my safe place. I'm okay, and it's okay to come home. I asked her how that felt to say. She said she felt relaxed, that there was a real calmness in her body. She said, It all makes sense now, and now I know how to work with this part. So I feel good. I encouraged her to practice the safety reappraisal every time she came home, even before stepping inside. Repetition is key. The more she reminds her brain that she's safe, the quicker it will start to believe it. Jane practiced her safety reappraisal and continued to rewire her brain, helping build safety around being in her home. And her crashes, they stopped within a couple of weeks. Isn't that incredible? The brain is always learning, always tracking what feels safe and what feels dangerous. And once it labels something as dangerous, it does everything it can to help you avoid it, even if that means creating symptoms to warn you or stop you. But when you learn to stop fighting your symptoms and explore them with openness and curiosity, the symptoms no longer need to be loud to get your attention. When you can see the true purpose of your symptoms, the frustration and fear slowly change to compassion and gratitude. The brain state shifts from danger to safety, and symptoms eventually disappear. And this is why I say remission is possible.